All right, welcome everybody. Because Jen Psaki is still in the press briefing, we're going to get to it. We'll see if the stuff about the vaccine mandates coming up. Let's listen, then we'll get to everything else.
We will leave it to, and we'll work in lockstep with him, Leader Schumer, to determine what the next steps are here. And I know he's spoken a bit to that. But ultimately, this is about continuing to press to move forward on the protection of voting rights and to use it as a moment to elevate this issue as an important issue for people across the country. And of course, any senator is going to be put in the position of determining what side of history they're going to stand on. And that's, I guess, the purpose of a vote.
The president also spoke about voter subversion when he spoke to reporters.
Yeah.
But neither the Freedom to Vote Act nor the John Lewis Voting Rights Act deal with subversion. They're focused more on suppression. Would the president want to see Democrats, if this process does move forward in the future, address laws in these 19 states, some of which would potentially allow for the overturning of a free and fair election?
Well, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, actually in Section 112, actually makes it illegal for state officials to willfully fail or refuse to certify the aggregate tabulations of votes or certify the election of the candidates receiving sufficient such votes to be elected to office. That is obviously addressing a root problem we're seeing in laws in many states across the country. And what these laws are meant to do is provide some fundamental baselines for protections for voters, and that's an important part of doing it. Obviously, there's more you will continue to build from there, but that's an important component, I think, that sometimes everyone isn't always aware of in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Oh, go ahead.
Has anyone been watching long enough to know if they've asked questions about the vaccine mandate being blocked?
Chairman, someone who has expressed support for Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, who, as you know, has had a very controversial tenure. What's the White House position on the persistent delivery delays that the Postal Service seems to be experiencing, at least anecdotally, and DeJoy's current place as Postmaster General? Does he deserve to have that role?
You know, I love anecdotal data. I will tell you that going back to the holidays, 97 or 98% of packages from the Postal Service were delivered on time. So there may be anecdotes from that 1 or 2%, but that's actual data.
There are delays region by region.
Okay, but 98% across the country. We have expressed concerns in the past about DeJoy's leadership. DeJoy, that was a little slip there. DeJoy's leadership in the past, that has not changed. I will say, though, and I know this has been raised, so I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to address it, that many members of the Postal Service, including leadership, has expressed confidence and an interest in playing the role in delivering tests to people across the country, and their confidence in doing exactly that. So we take them at their word, and certainly we're encouraged by the data we saw from December. Go ahead, April. Oh, April, let me first say, 25 years covering the White House. That's pretty significant.
Wow.
I don't have a song for this, but just congratulations. I mean, I'm a terrible singer, so we don't want that anyway. Go ahead.
Give me an interview with the president, but that's a whole other thing. On the record, right. On another issue, Jen, the issue of policing. As you're working on voting rights, we understand simultaneously you're working diligently on this executive order to bring more teeth into protections for people, Americans, particularly minorities who are dying at the hands of bad policing. What is different with this executive order versus what could have happened on Capitol Hill? We understand laws have more teeth, but I understand that you guys are working to bring more teeth into these executive orders. Talk to me about that.
It's a great question, April, and as you know from covering this closely, we were kind of waiting on any executive orders out of deference to the negotiations that were happening in a bipartisan manner. And of course, we believe that the ability, especially in a bipartisan way, when possible, to move forward on legislation makes it permanent, right? And that is not the case, of course, with executive orders. In terms of the specific details, they are under discussion. I just don't have anything I can outline for you at this moment because there's an internal policy discussion.
So I understand there's a sense of urgency on it. I was told from one source it was days, and then others said it could be weeks, but it's happening soon. Why the sense of urgency right now, especially when you're dealing with voting rights, trying to figure that out as well?
I think there's a recognition and a commitment by the president to
Yeah, I will look for a feed that shows the reporters. Stand by.
efforts to negotiate police reform on a bipartisan level. Obviously, that didn't move forward as we would have hoped, and so there's a legal policy substantive process that has to go through the consideration of executive orders. That's ongoing. It is hard to predict the timing of that, so I don't want to do that from here. But it's a reflection of the president's commitment to delivering on his promise.
PBS doesn't seem to.
When candidate, or president-elect, I guess you would say, Joe Biden was building his cabinet, he specifically singled out Marcia Fudge for her work and the fact that she was one of the presidents of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated that is having its Founders Day. He talked about the great work that the sorority does. What does he have for the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated today as they're celebrating Founders Day?
Nobody
He
seems
knows
to
about
today.
it so well.
Of course. Well, the president wishes the women of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated a happy 109th Founders Day and many more years of academic excellence and service to those who are members. The president has been very vocal of his support, as you noted, April, for Delta Sigma Theta and all Divine Nine sororities and fraternities. In October,
Theta.
Vice President Harris hosted a historic meeting of the Divine Nine Council of Presidents at the White House, which included immediate past President Beverly Smith, and we're incredibly grateful to the work Delta Sigma Theta has done to uplift communities across the world, especially the hard work of former National President and current HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge, and the women of Delta Sigma Theta who work on behalf of the American people in the Biden-Harris administration each and every day, of which I hear there are a few. Go ahead.
Also a one-year kind of question.
Sure.
When you listen to the president's inauguration address, you hear the words unity, you hear better angels of America. We didn't hear these words in his speeches at the Capitol or in Georgia. Does it mean that he has changed his state of mind, and does he think that America can't be unified anymore?
No, actually, quite the contrary. I mean, the president believes that protecting people's fundamental rights to vote and participate in the process, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, whatever party you are a member of, that is not a partisan issue. It should be a unifying issue. And that is why he reflected when he went to the caucus today on the fact that there are 16 Republicans who have supported voting rights in the past, because it is not been historically a partisan issue. And he's not prejudging who people support. He is trying to protect people's ability to participate in the process.
Just a follow-up, if I may. With the Congress as it is, with the Supreme Court as it is, what's the way forward for the rest of the mandate? Is it more executive orders?
Right.
Is it smaller steps rather than big transformative reforms? What's the idea?
Well, that's a big question, but I would say that the president has had, we feel we've had a lot of success over the past year, getting the economy back on stronger footing, getting 200 million Americans vaccinated, getting a bipartisan infrastructure bill passed, rebuilding our relationships in the world and America's standing in the world. And what we want to do now is build on that in year two. That means continuing to press to get voting rights done, to get Build Back Better done. To get CHIPS funding passed so we can ensure that manufacturing happens in the United States. So of course there's still big, bold pieces of the president's agenda he wants to get done, and he's going to keep fighting for it. It is also true that it is challenging to move things forward with such a small margin in Congress, and he is very well aware of that. We've been living it for almost a year now. Go ahead.
Jen, a testing question that a couple from pool colleagues who
Sure.
be here. The president mentioned the other 500 million tests that
Yep.
are now in the works. Can you give us any sense on timeline when you're looking at contracts?
Good question.
When you're looking at delivery, when people will actually end up seeing them after they see this first $500 million?
Sure. So I had said earlier this week that we were looking to finalize our contracts for the first 500 million within the 2 weeks. I can give you an update that now we're at the point where we've procured about 380 million of those tests, and we're going to continue to build from there. So the plan is to, we feel we're making very strong progress, of course, and after we conclude this phase, we'll begin awarding contracts for today's announcement. We'll continue to proceed from there.
Looking at that very
A
strongly.
rough ballpark on when that second $500 million might.
Not yet. We may be able to as we kind of proceed in the process, as we have done with the first 500 million, but I don't have a specific update yet at this point in time, just a status update on the first 500 million, and obviously when we conclude this phase, we'll move to the next 500 million.
You had mentioned earlier in the briefing that less than 10% of the population is now having trouble finding a test. Can you kind of...
Said there was a recent poll. I'm happy to tweet it after the briefing if you'd like, to make it available to all of you. I think it was a
I would question that poll.
We know how much you love anecdotal data, but people talking about the long waits.
It's like how many people are even looking for tests?
The president made it a point to say testing has gotten so much better today, but that would be pretty stark if it's now 1 in 10 Americans claiming that they're...
Well, I said a recent poll, which I think is just important to note because obviously what we've been doing to date and where we are at this point in time is 300 million tests every single month. That is a lot of tests. And sometimes you would think that no one is able to get a test and no one is being tested when nearly 12 million people are being tested every day. At the same time, as I have said, as the president has said, we want to do more and we are continuing to do more. And that's why we're running this expedited process to procure more tests to ensure they're free, they're accessible, and they're available to people across the country.
And two
Oh, go ahead.
Radio pool colleagues,
Okay.
if you will. The FAA ground stop earlier this week
Yeah.
on the heels of the North Korean missile test. Can you give us an idea what information you all have about that? And is there a fear that these tests, North Korean tests, may actually pose some type of danger or issue for U.S. civil aviation?
I believe the FAA has spoken to this and taken kind of a look back at what happened. I think it was a 15-minute ground stop, and they have reflected on the procedures that happened and taken a look for them moving forward. I would note that our national security and most importantly our defense officials across the country, after those tests, conveyed that no officials were at risk. So I'd really point you to the FAA as they assess that decision last week or earlier this week. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, a committee to protect journalists report questioning, saying freedom advocates are concerned with your administration in terms of access to the president for reporters.
The concept of freedom advocate is a funny one.
The request
Timely
that
responses from our press office.
From the press office
I'm
to
surprised to hear that.
various queries on various topics.
Two queries. Okay.
Slow responses to requests for information. Let me
Okay.
quote from that. The request to extradite Julian Assange, restrictions on access to the media at the southern border, limited help for Afghan journalists. Can you give us a comment from your perspective on how you see those things playing out and what some of these criticisms are?
Well, I haven't read the report, but I would say, broadly speaking, that when I spoke with the president about this job, I mean, one of the things he conveyed to me very clearly was resetting the tone with the media was a big priority for him, and ensuring that there was a respect, even when there's a point of contention or a difficult conversation or back and forth, that is part of democracy. But our objective has been to reinstill normalcy and engagement with reporters, whether we agree or disagree, whether there is a partisan tilt to an outlet or not. And I think we have conducted ourselves accordingly. And always we're working to continue to be responsive. I would say 2 inquiries of probably tens of thousands, if not more, does not to me sound like a data point, but I will look closer at the report. The other thing I would say is that the president has taken questions at about 250 occasions over the past year. If you average about 3 questions per time, that's about 750 questions he's taken. That does not include the formal press conference he did in March, other press conferences he's done. That's about 3, so let's say 1,000, just to be generous there. That's about 3 questions a day. I think the American people have seen him out there answering questions. He will continue to be. That's an important part of his engagement with the press and the public, and that will be a part of how we continue to conduct ourselves. Go ahead, James.
Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you.
I want to ask one on the economy and one on the pandemic, if you don't mind.
Sure.
On the economy, in yesterday's briefing with Mr. Deese and in today's briefing, you have both cited economic metrics that showed great progress across 2021, from the unemployment rate to job creation to a rise in real household income. And when citing the progress in those areas, both you and Mr. Deese attributed that progress to specific administration policies and legislative initiatives. Yet when it came to the highest inflation in 40 years, both you and Mr. Deese attributed this to a variety of external factors, from the pandemic to supply chain constraints to inaction by the Congress on Build Back Better. So, to be clear, for the American people in this midterm year who are going to be assessing the performance of the president and his party, where specifically inflation is concerned, does the buck stop with the president?
Elements of bathrooms.
I would say, James, first, that the president has spoken to the fact that costs for Americans and the squeeze it puts on Americans is a top concern for him. And I think Brian Deese also conveyed that yesterday. And that's why he put in place a supply chain task force, why we've prioritized taking steps, including having a port czar, including ensuring there are more truckers on the roads, to ensure there are more goods moving and more goods on the shelves. And we've made a lot of progress in that regard. Of course, that's his responsibility and the responsibility of the economic team. I also think it's notable that if you go back to earlier this year, there were not the projections of the economic growth we have seen or the decrease in the unemployment rate we have seen. And that is in part, not just according to us, but many outside economists, to the bills that have passed, some of them bipartisan, and the work of this administration to get the economy up and going again and address COVID.
So your answer is yes, he owns the job creation, he owns the low unemployment rate, and he also owns inflation, correct?
I think any president should own everything happening in the country, and the president certainly sees it that way.
To the pandemic. The president's remarks this morning included yet another exhortation to the unvaccinated population to get vaccinated. He has, since assuming office, made dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds, of these kinds of appeals to that particular population. Do you have any evidence? Indeed, do you have any sound basis for determining at all whether he is having any success in urging that population to do as he counsels?
Fair question.
We do. If you go back to December of 2020, just over 30%, maybe 35% of people in this country was open to getting vaccinated. Now we're at the point where more than 80% of the country has gotten at least one dose. What the president also recognizes is that he's not always the most effective messenger. Everybody in the country is not looking for him to tell them what to do. He certainly knows that. What's most important here is for people hearing from local leaders, pediatricians in some cases, doctors, people who have different political beliefs out there, conveying clear, accurate information about the effectiveness of these vaccines.
I mean, what we know is it's that mandates are what really encourage people, you know?
Implemented.
How do we know that 35% of the American population was willing to get vaccinated a year ago?
I can give you the data. I'm happy to give that to you after the briefing. It was a public poll. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I have two questions, one on Haiti, the other one on Canada.
Sure.
The first one on Haiti. Yesterday was the 12th anniversary of the terrible earthquake of 2010. The effects are still being felt over there.
Remembered after that earthquake when some football analysts referred to Haiti as Haitian? It's a really weird clip.
The migrants that were deported last fall, back the thousands of them that were deported over there.
Related to the earthquake?
Related to the earthquake, but considering the situation over there, 12 years later, what kind of follow-up has been done with the migrants that were sent back last fall?
Well, we have a very large presence on the ground, a diplomatic presence on the ground in Haiti, and that has continued to be the case. We are also one of the largest, if not the largest, provider of humanitarian assistance to Haiti through NGOs and many outside groups in order to provide assistance for the range of challenges that people in Haiti have gone through, from earthquakes or natural disasters to obviously the challenge of the assassination of their leader that happened this past summer. So we will continue to be providers of humanitarian assistance. Our diplomatic presence there is on the ground and working closely with trusted leaders in the region, in the country, and we remain committed to that.
But you haven't been, the Americans on the ground, the officials on the ground, haven't been in contact with the Haitians who've been deported from Texas, for instance, last fall?
Well, I would say we have a diplomatic presence on the ground that's in touch with a range of Haitians who either have been sent back or who need help and assistance, and we work closely with local authorities to make sure that the humanitarian assistance is getting exactly to the people who need it.
Canada, and Jen, I just want to check something with you. Considering the multiple recent trade setbacks with the U.S., the conservative leader in Canada this week claimed that the U.S.-Canada relationship is at its lowest point in decades. How do you see this?
We don't see it that way. We view Canada as an important neighbor, an important partner, a country we are aligned on in many democratic values. We work with on a range of issues facing the global community, and that is certainly the view of our government here.
You don't feel a frustration towards, for instance, the fact that the Buy America measures are still imposed actually more strictly under this administration?
We are certainly familiar with the frustrations of some leaders who have been outspoken about it and spoke to it when they were here. And I would just reiterate that our objective here is to make electric vehicles specifically more accessible to Americans, to lower the cost here for Americans, and that is why the president pushed so hard for those provisions. But we see continue to see Canada as an important partner in the world. Go ahead.
Just on the president's first anniversary in office, what does he regard as his single most important achievement?
Oh, there's so many accomplishments.
Any mistakes have been made, and if so, what's the biggest mistake?
Well, I would say first that the president is very proud of the progress we've made in getting 200 million Americans vaccinated. Very proud of the work we have done to cut the childhood poverty by 40%, to help Americans who needed a little extra help get by through a challenging economic time. The work we did to get a bipartisan infrastructure bill passed and to rebuild our place in the world. There are many others, I think, nominating and confirming historic judges across the board, ensuring that our administration up and down the ranks looks like America. And I could go on from there, fighting to take steps on climate in a historic manner that has been more than any administration in the past. In terms of what we look back, I'm not going to speculate on that from here. I will let the president speak to that the next time you all see him.
Did he underestimate Donald Trump's continued grip on the Republican Party and how difficult that would make it to work across the aisle and unite the nation?
I will tell you that hearing Kevin McCarthy talk today, for an example, and seeing what he said on January 21st last year is a pretty stark reminder of how much sway the former president has over members of his party. I think that's disappointing for everybody, not just people who work here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I wanted to ask a question from some colleagues who couldn't be here.
Sure.
And then before I get to that, I wanted to follow up on a question that Justin asked.
Sure.
He has like 7 questions.
The president was in the Senate for 36 years.
Yeah.
We're at a point where his legislative agenda on Build Back Better and Voting Rights Act has hit major roadblocks. Is there some introspection that his approach to the Senate is not working, and are there changes that he's making to his approach to the Senate, given his experience there?
Well, I would also point to his experience leading him to stay focused and committed to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, something that many said could never happen. And when it was voted on, 19 Republicans voted for it. He leaned on his experience in the Senate to get that done. He leaned on his experience in the Senate to get the American Rescue Plan done and passed into law. And he will continue to lean on his experience in the Senate and as a former vice president to press for voting rights legislation, to press for Build Back Better, and getting those pieces of legislation done. So I would say, the successes we had in the past year and that he had, despite the fact that there was a slim margin, are actually, I guess I'm biased, but pretty impressive given the margin we had in the Senate and the challenges we had up against us.
Given that he's ending his first year underwater in the polls, more Americans disapprove of his job in office than approve of his job in office. What is he planning to do differently in his approach to the job in the second year that shows that he's listening to that disapproval?
Well, I think what you see in most of these polls is a real frustration and exhaustion with COVID, and the fact that it is not over. We share that. We understand that. People are fatigued across the country. It's impacting how they live, how they work. Their worries about their kids, their ability to experience joyful things in life like concerts and going to restaurants and seeing friends. We understand that. The president knows that the best, most important step he can take is to continue to fight to get the pandemic under control and also to lower costs for Americans across the country. So I would say it's a continuation of the fights that he built a great deal of a base for over the course of the last year.
The president doesn't think that the disapproval rates are a reflection of the way he's approached the job.
Again, I would point you to what most data shows you, which is a frustration about COVID and prices, and he believes, and he has believed from the beginning, that addressing COVID and the economy are number 1, 2, 3, 4 issues, and that continues to be the case today.
Just a couple questions from colleagues who couldn't be here. Do Biden and Putin have plans to meet in the future?
I don't have anything to predict for you on that front. As Jake mentioned, we're just, of course, concluding the third round of talks. People are going to go back to their capitals. They're going to discuss and assess and see where things stand. So in terms of next steps, we'll have to see. We'll know more over the coming days.
In those talks, is there a deadline for Moscow to de-escalate in Ukraine?
Again, I'm not going to set any deadlines here. Ultimately, the choice is really up to them. Are they going to proceed in invading Ukraine? If so, there are going to be severe consequences and economic impacts that will be devastating to the economy there, far beyond what happened in 2014. If that's a choice they want to make and they think that's to their advantage, that's a choice. They only have the power to make that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, so there is Jen Psaki wrapping up a press briefing, and we are going to get right to the latest the latest news. I saw the super chats coming in during the press briefing. The big news here: the Supreme Court has blocked Joe Biden's COVID vaccine mandate for businesses, but it will allow the worker rule for healthcare workers. We said from the beginning, morally, this is absolutely the right thing to do. Will it stand up to court scrutiny? And we did not know the answer. We now have one, at least initially. The Supreme Court today blocked the Biden administration from enforcing its sweeping vaccine or test requirement for large private companies. But the conservative majority court allowed similar requirements to stand for medical facilities that take Medicare or Medicaid payments. The OSHA mandate required workers at businesses with 100 or more employees must get vaccinated or submit a negative COVID test weekly to enter the workplace. Remember, Fox News has an even stricter mandate than that with daily testing. So, back when it was Hillary versus Trump, and many of us were saying, you guys realize that the Supreme Court aspect of the next 4 years may have incredible consequences. And there were some on the left who were saying, no, Hillary and Trump are the same. If it's not going to be who I want, then just screw it and let it be Trump. We are now seeing one of the ways in which that was a disaster. My belief is that had Hillary Clinton chosen 3 Supreme Court justices, this would stand. Now, that being said, it was always a question whether you could do this through OSHA. And at a certain point, there is an aspect of opinion here, right? There's a reason we call them conservative or liberal justices, even though we would like to say it's just the law and there's one interpretation of the law. Well, then we wouldn't use the word interpretation. And it does make a difference. So that's what's going on. Now, it's important to remember businesses can still legally require vaccinations from workers or customers. It's the federal government can't mandate them to do it through OSHA. And it's a really, really important distinction to make. And I hope I can't tell from what people in the chat are saying whether people get that. Now, obviously, you're going to see all these videos of right wingers going to businesses, even businesses that don't have 100 employees anyway. Understand that if you have 20 employees, you were never even subject to this. But there's people now, you're going to see the viral videos. No, the Supreme Court ruled you can't do it. And it's like, okay, actually, the Supreme Court didn't even rule about anything for under 100. And the Supreme Court didn't say a business can't choose to do this. The Supreme Court said that businesses can't be required to do it through OSHA. Good luck with them understanding that distinction. So that's what happened today as far as the mandate is concerned. Okay. I do want to say thank you to Carol Ann Miller for signing up on my website with the coupon code WOW22. I also want to say thanks to the very edgy user Thick Nips, dear God, for the Twitch Prime subscription. You are number 2 today, and I really appreciate that. Great day to re-up your Twitch Prime subscription or to sign up on my website. We are still banned from Facebook monetization. A beautiful thing happened. Well, no, so first a bad thing happened, which is one of our posts was misinterpreted as anti-vax by Facebook, and we got banned 90 days from monetization. It's insane. It's hard to think of a more pro-vax channel than ours. Then 5 people in our audience who work at Facebook got in touch and said, let me try to get this appealed for you because this is clearly an algorithmic decision. It's an error. Okay. We're going to try to get it fixed. 5 people are working on it. We are on day 5 of the ban. Nothing has happened so far. Okay. So we're still waiting on that, but you can sign up at joinpacman.com with the coupon code FFacebook. That's 2 F's. Facebook with 2 F's. FFacebook to help us make up what is a nearly 20% revenue gap. And it's pretty brutal. Here's an interesting Twitch question. Why are you okay with businesses denying service for certain reasons, but not any reason? It's something called the law. There are certain reasons in the law that businesses cannot refuse service. Those are the ones that I am against them refusing service for. It's called the law. We live in a society. We have a world, as Donald Trump says. It is against the law to discriminate on the basis of an immutable characteristic like race, national origin, etc. I'm against that. That would be breaking the law. Someone saying, we don't want Republicans here other than in Washington, D.C., that's legal. Do I advocate for it? No, but what I'm saying is it's legal. Is it legal to require shoes? Yes. Is it legal to require shirts? Yes. Is it legal to say we want our employees or customers to show proof of vaccine? Yes. That's the law. And what's great about America is if you don't like it, you can choose not to go to that business. Now, obviously, they might not allow you to go anyway, right? I mean, that's like sort of the point here. They might say, well, we're not allowing you in anyway, but you can advocate, even if you're vaccinated and you don't like a vaccine mandate at a restaurant, you can say, don't go to this. And then you can ruin that business financially if enough people agree with you by saying, we're not going to go. All right. So I don't really know what else to say. It's the law is the answer. Thanks to Kind AF for the Twitch Prime subscription. I appreciate that. Okay, we are now getting into some very meaty, thick, and rich charges. What is happening here? When it comes to the Trump riots. This is so funny, actually. Let me show this to you. I think you guys are going to like this. Here it is. Brit Hume hours ago, tweeted, here's a thought. Let's base our view on whether 1-6 was an insurrection, on whether those arrested are charged with insurrection. So far, none has been. What's really funny is founder of far-right Oath Keeper militia group, Stuart Rhodes, 10 others charged with seditious conspiracy in the January 6th Capitol attack. I tweeted earlier, so they were waiting on more serious charges. And actually, Asha Rangappa weighed in and she says, I don't think they were waiting. The more serious charges are also more complex and take longer to gather evidence and put together. If you look at the indictment, it is incredibly detailed and you can't get that info overnight. So 3 hours and Brit Hume's comment has been undone. The serious charges are starting to drop in. Oath Keepers leader, 10 others charged with seditious conspiracy. Elmer Stewart Rhodes, founder of the far-right militia group Oath Keepers, indicted and arrested over his organization's alleged involvement planning the 1-6 attacks. Rhodes is being charged for the first time in connection to events leading up to and on January 6th. An additional 10 people, including 9 others facing separate charges, were also indicted. They were charged with seditious conspiracy. The defendants conspired in a variety of ways, including organizing into teams that were, quote, prepared and willing to use force and to transport firearms and ammunition into Washington, D.C. More than 700 people now charged. Rhodes' lawyer told NBC News he was on the phone with Rhodes when the FBI came to his house to arrest him. Mosley said they were talking about his scheduled appearance before the House committee when the FBI called Rhodes. He patched me in and identified myself as his lawyer. The FBI special agent said they were outside. He needed to come out with his hands up. Hands up. These are extraordinarily serious charges. Extraordinarily serious charges. And it doesn't seem like it's Antifa. It's increasingly looking like it was not Antifa. Okay. Jane says via Super Chat, it's a luxury to get to choose between a job or a jab. I get to choose between my nervous system or my life. The unvaccinated are antithetical to freedom. Very, very serious. I want to say thanks to Kendall for the Twitch Prime subscription. You're number 4 today. Also, a big thank you to Alexander Benkstein, who just signed up using the coupon code FFacebook. FFacebook. Oh, people are asking what exactly we were banned for. All right, let me show you the offending post. This is just nuts. Here it is. See if I can put this up on the screen. This is the post. Look at this. Your post didn't follow our community standards. And it was coverage of Alex Jones turning on Trump over Trump saying vaccines are good. And of course, in the clip, we say the vaccines are good. We say all of the things. This got us banned for 90 days from Facebook monetization. Isn't that something? It is really something wild. Thanks to Joanne Stern as well for the new membership using the code FFacebook. I appreciate that. Also, thank you to Nasty Nate 121, I think it says. You are number 7 today. Super Chat's coming in. Why not crowdfund $500 million to bribe Cinema, I guess they mean, and Manchin to support the removal of the filibuster because they're corrupt anyway? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that seems like a pretty wild idea. Here is video of the arrest of this Oath Keeper's seditious conspiracist.
But because of the evidence that they've collected in the underlying investigation, they believe they do have the support based upon the specific words from some of these alleged co-conspirators that was in fact their plan to use violence to overtake a government agency or process. So to the extent that it's a very rare charge, it's because it's often not easy to have the very specific evidence you would need to prove the elements of that crime.
Imagine trying to go home and all of a sudden this is what you see on your street. I mean, what a situation. But now the charges are getting very, very real. David asking about the Oath Keepers. Who do they give an oath to? Wasn't our Constitution? Hope it was worth supporting a con man from Queens. They'll be bankrupt and possibly in prison soon. Yes, very much so. Very much so. We do have a hype train going over on Twitch. I want to say thanks to Sterling Lana for gifting a subscription. That's number 8 today. Very much appreciate that. Okay, let's continue. We have a couple other things to look at. This is a wild, wild clip. I don't even know if this is new. I saw it today for the first time. Herschel Walker, the Republican candidate, told Glenn Beck that he has a dry mist that will kill COVID. A dry mist that will kill COVID. Check out this insanity.
They can bring you into a building that will clean you from COVID.
Crover. It'll kill Crover. I guess technically he's not saying it'll kill COVID. He's saying it'll kill Crover, which is maybe something different.
Walk through this dry mist. As you walk through the door,
even Glenn Beck, who has refused the vaccine and now has COVID twice, even Glenn Beck isn't sure about this. Look at Glenn Beck's reaction when he says it'll kill Crover.
As you walk through the door, it will kill any COVID on your body. EPA, FDA approved. When you leave, it will kill your eyes as you leave this here product. Then I have something, you can go and spray down this product. Do you know, they don't want to talk about that.
Also, if it's mist, how is it dry? I don't even understand that. It's like it's like dry water. I don't even know what that means.
They don't want to hear about that.
I have something, a dry mist. A dry mist that would clean you from COVID. It's EPA and FDA approved, but they don't want you to hear about it.
That's exactly. Why is that so hard to imagine?
And then I see the disinfectant. Is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside? Or supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, very powerful light, apply light and heat to cure. Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
Right.
Convalescent plasma.
Okay. So that's that. Do you guys want to see Kamala Harris give a really bad interview? Like, just, it's bad. It's very, very bad. Oh, thanks to B. Kimberly for the Twitch Prime subscription. I appreciate that. Let me show this to you guys. You know, this is just, I don't know if Kamala Harris was ill-prepared. This is a really bad interview. And I don't deny for a second that the Biden administration, like many world leaders, are in a really tough position because of what's going on with Omicron. But this is a very bad interview.
This week we saw a record number of hospitalizations, adults and children. We've seen the infection record broken. I think a lot of people are scratching their heads and they're wondering, 1 year into this administration, why aren't we doing better in the fight against COVID?
Right.
So let me start with saying that people are rightly frustrated with where we are.
Okay.
We're frustrated. We're all frustrated. But I think it's a mistake, and it would be a mistake to suggest that we've not seen great progress. If you think back to March of 2020, we were all wiping down the boxes that we got if we ordered things online. There was no vaccine. Now we have a vaccine.
See, here's my take on this question. Obviously, what I'm going to say is not focus group tested, and I haven't had a team of PR people tell me what should be my approach. But if I were her in this situation, when I see the numbers that are going on, I would go, listen, I think this is Craig Melvin from MSNBC. I would say, listen, Craig, here's what's going on. The entire world is overrun with Omicron. And with a few very rare exceptions, mostly in places that are extremely authoritarian and where the public allows a certain level of sort of government control that would never fly in most Western countries. Everybody's being overrun with Omicron, and it's happening like clockwork. The peak in South Africa is the same peak we're seeing in the UK, although it's delayed, and it looks like it's the same peak we're seeing in the United States. It's happening everywhere. Omicron is that contagious. What we want is to protect people from serious illness and death with the vaccine, which it does. And in the meantime, get as many tests out as quickly as possible, which the Trump administration didn't do and we're doing, and to get people masks, which Bernie Sanders just suggested. That's what I would say. I wouldn't try to do this, because when their answers try to justify a situation that at the end of the day is the same basically everywhere to different degrees. And so that would be my approach. And I'm sure that there are political analysts that would say, David, there's a reason why she wouldn't be advised to answer in that way, because then I'm just telling you how I would honestly communicate. That's all I'm saying. Okay, let's continue.
Which has proved to be effective, and boosters. Now we have our children back in school. 95% of schools are back open. But we're building back up, we're opening back up, and we are not where we were a year ago.
Let's talk about masks for a second. It's been several weeks now since public health experts have acknowledged that cloth masks, surgical masks, they're not as effective in terms of stopping this new variant, Omicron. Should Americans be wearing KN95 masks or N95 masks?
Well, the CDC is going to be providing us with those guidelines.
But what's taking so long?
Well, the CDC is making their decisions. I don't make the CDC's decisions. But what I will say is what has been clear about the masks is you want to wear a tight-fitting mask. That is clear. And
it's like at this point, it seems almost like you're in a fantasy world if you don't acknowledge there is no question that not all masks are created equal. And we are encouraging the CDC to provide us updated guidance. Like, I feel like every single one of these questions could be better answered.
we want to urge everybody to do that. In terms of the N95 masks, they are available. There is a stockpile of I believe, over 700 million of those masks. So the supply is there as necessary and as needed.
At what point does the administration say, you know what, this strategy isn't working, we're going to change strategies? 6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
That is not good. That is not. Am I being too hard on her, guys? This is really bad. It's like, again, this is where she could say, we are in a situation right now with the variant that is so contagious and so widespread that what we need to be doing is getting as many people boosted, because that prevents you from getting seriously ill, protect people as much as we can. It's going down in South Africa. It's down 65%. It's down in the UK. We have wastewater data from Boston and other places that show it's starting to go down here. This now is it's just weird. We have to keep doing everything I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down. And so right now we know we still have a number of people that is in the millions of Americans who have not been vaccinated and could be vaccinated, and we are urging them to get vaccinated because it will save their life.
At what point does the administration acknowledge these people aren't going to get the shot? They're just not going to do it.
I don't believe in giving up on people, Craig. I really don't.
The 500 million tests.
See, and again, it's not about giving up on people. It's having a strategy that doesn't depend on those people. And these are two different things.
Tests that have been ordered that are going to be sent to every American. Do we know when those are going out?
Shortly. Though they're going to go out shortly.
They've been
the tests are going out. This is maybe the worst part. The tests are going out shortly.
They've been ordered. I have to look at the current information. I think it's going to be by next week. But soon. Absolutely soon. And it is a matter of urgency for us.
Should we have done that sooner?
We are doing it.
Again, should we have done it sooner? I can understand why she wouldn't say yes. I can understand that. I can understand why a political apparatus would say, you can't say yes. You can't give a simple yes. You can't give a simple yes. But we are doing it. And by the way, everyone's saying other people's interviews were worse. We're looking at this interview right now. I've covered other interviews as well. I'm not saying this is the worst interview. It's just not good. She's not coming off well in this interview. I still voted for Biden, guys. Come on. Just repeating, we are doing it. It's not great.
But should we have done it sooner?
We are doing it.
Let's turn to voting rights here for a moment. You were there in Atlanta with the president when he compared those who oppose Democratic-backed voting bills that are currently in the Senate. He compared the folks who oppose those to...
I don't think so. I see that someone's saying that Craig Melvin's asking bad questions. No, these are real questions. These are real questions. You look at the numbers and it's crazy. Should we be doing something different? She could answer and say, this is so contagious that what we're seeing from other countries is it almost doesn't matter what you do in terms of cases. What matters is in terms of keeping people out of the hospital. That would be a fair answer. I think this is called journalism. This is asking questions.
Folks who oppose civil rights. Senator Romney, in response yesterday, he took to the floor of the Senate and he said, quote, so much for unifying the country. When the president was on the campaign trail in the fall of 2020, he said something. He said, with Trump out of the way, the vindictiveness of a president going after Republicans.
By the way, I don't know what's worse, Kamala's answers or the jump cuts in the editing that was chosen for this interview. It's bizarre.
Don't do exactly what he says gets taken away. Isn't that exactly what President Biden did in Atlanta on Wednesday?
President Biden took the, I believe, right and courageous step to say that Senate rules should not get in the way of protecting the American people's access to the ballot. And he compared this time to a previous time in our history, which is apt for comparison.
It's not just Republican opposition. It would seem as if this piece of legislation is going to come down to one or two moderate Democrats.
All right. So the really bad part was about, this part is just kind of completely milquetoast, but the really bad part was about COVID. And so, you know, as many of you know, I have said a number of times now, I would be very worried about if Biden runs again, Biden versus Trump 2024. I'm not feeling great about Biden. Biden versus DeSantis 2024. I'm not feeling great about Biden. If Biden says I'm not running for re-election and we are kind of saying it's going to be Kamala, if however it is, Kamala is the nominee and it's Kamala versus Trump, I'm not feeling very good about it. And if it's Kamala versus DeSantis, I'm also not feeling very good about it. People can argue with me. It's just my opinion. You all know. I mean, I just call it like it is, and it's a concern. I want to say thank you to Prickly Sausage for signing up via Twitch Prime. I really appreciate that. Remember that if you have Amazon Prime, you can get a free Twitch Prime membership. You take a few bucks from Jeff Bezos and you give them to us, and it costs you nothing, and we really, really appreciate it. I also want to say thanks to Gerardo. I have a cousin, Gerardo. Gerardo. Now, I don't know if this is supposed to be, Cardozo Perez. Well, thanks to Gerardo for signing up on my website with the coupon code FFacebook. FFacebook. Let me play for you guys a really ugly voicemail that I received. It is a pretty brutal voicemail, but I am going to play it for you. Take a listen.
I've just seen you on cable television this morning. You're a real piece of shit. You know that?
Right.
People like you is what's tearing this country apart.
That I disagree with.
You're a punk-ass white boy.
That I disagree with. I am Hispanic. White Hispanic, but actually, you know what's really funny about that? Obviously, I'm white passing in the United States. I moved to the U.S. early enough that I don't have an accent in English, except when I talk about the horror of situations. But that's not even an accent from Argentina. Anyway, white supremacists are like, no, you're not white, you're Jewish. But then on the left, they're like, oh, yeah, you're white. Because Jews are privileged. And anyway, okay, let's continue.
You got your ass whipped a whole bunch back in the day. You just...
No, that's not true. No.
So liberal, it's not even fucking funny.
Mm-hmm.
You're a disgrace. You little cocksucker.
Whoa. Interesting. I think if it was that caller versus Kamala, I feel good about Kamala in that matchup for sure. I want to say thanks to Last Throw, Jen here, and Splooging Unicorn for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. Those are numbers 12, 13, and 14. Very, very much appreciate that. Ryan Ferguson says, I was sitting in my room the other night and I realized my spouse was gone. I heard a strange sound outside. There was a knock on the door and the man said,
Sir, your wife is up in the air.
That is something. That is really, really something. That sounds like a stressful thing. Okay, so we got that. We did the Herschel Walker thing. Oh, the other day I jokingly, when I banned someone, I said, "Get off my stream." And it was a reference to the movie Air Force One. Someone actually did that, replacing Harrison Ford's face with my face in that scene. And very, very nicely done. Wait, let's see here. Here it is. That's nicely done. I like that. That's pretty funny. So I appreciate that. Okay, we're back over here. Oh, thank you to Judo Known for the Twitch Prime subscription. I appreciate that. What time are we starting on Saturday? Okay, so here's my thought about Saturday. Officially speaking, Donald Trump is scheduled to speak at 9 p.m. Eastern Saturday at the Arizona rally. My plan is to start streaming an hour before that at 8 p.m. Eastern. And an hour of pre-rally stuff is fine. The truth is Trump typically comes on so late that we'll probably get closer to 90 minutes. So my thought, if it's okay with you guys, is to start streaming at 8 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And we might be able to catch Pillow. Pillow is expected to speak. And yeah, I'll just play an hour of Whitney's voicemails and it'll fly by. No, and the other thing, if people are interested, I was gonna refresh the Trump bingo we used to have Trump. Let me see if I actually have it. Let me see. Bingo. Oh boy, hold on. That did not sound good. Where is my bingo element? Soundboard. I think I've got to make it from scratch. Yeah, I was going to refresh Trump bingo so that we could just have a new version of it and play to have something to kind of keep our sanity. If you guys think that would be that would be appropriate, and I'll have that put together for everybody by Saturday for the rally. Will Trump say Obama? That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know whether he will. Remember this, guys?
If Ted doesn't win, your Second Amendment's going to be in trouble. Big trouble. Remember that. O'Rourke voted against the border wall. Oh, that's a good thing to him. He voted against Kate's law, and he voted for Obama amnesty. Amnesty. Obama amnesty.
What does it mean to vote against case law? Like what? I don't even really understand the meaning of that. It's a very, very strange thing to say. Okay, couple voicemails. Yeah, let's do it. We haven't done voicemails for a while. I do have some new weaponized disinformation from Eric from Mass.
Hey, David, Eric from Mass. Straight from the CDC, 78% of COVID deaths among vaccinated had 4+ comorbidities. So cut the 800,000. Let's round it off to 80%. That's 4, 5. It's about 140,000 or so, 130,000. No pandemic, buddy. 4 or more comorbidities. That means people had cancer and AIDS and stuff like that, and things like that nature, and means the normal person, the regular healthy person, only about 100,000+.
Even Eric sounds bored of his own phone calls.
Do you know how many of the 836,000 deaths in the U.S. linked to COVID are from COVID?
That sounds like, is that Brett Baer? It sounds like he's playing Brett Baer through the phone, which is an odd thing to do for sure. Let me see what else we've got here. The voicemail has been particularly trash lately. Here's Jimmy from Philly.
David, Jimmy from Philly. What? So, Dr. Oz really scares you, doesn't he? If you ever ran for office, David, I'd call you Dr. Propaganda.
I don't claim to be a doctor. That's the weird thing.
Mr. David Packman, I'm calling about the video about President Trump, the real president, and his interview.
All right. Well, we're off of that. He left a bunch more, but not super interested right now. Let's see what else I have that might be of interest for you. Here's something from the Eggman.
Hi, Dave and Pat. This is a very serious question. My wife and kids are vegetarian/vegan even, and they say stuff like animals should never be used for clothing, for entertainment, for food, stuff like that, right? Pig Heart Man. I just want to say that I'm not that upset with Pig Heart Man. I think it's okay to use that pig heart to extend this man's life. But I'd ask you this. Are they making bacon out of the rest of that pig? And if so, would Pat eat that bacon? Or Dave, would you eat that bacon? And I ask you this because this animal is being used for medical purposes to save a man's life. And you don't want that bacon going to waste, do you? You wouldn't, like, throw out.
No, I wouldn't have it anyway because bacon is a carcinogen. So it doesn't, yeah, I would not have the bacon. Yeah. Wow, something is really going on with our callers these days. Let's see. Here's another Jimmy from Philly.
David, Jimmy from Philly. So since January and February are bad months for creators, I personally think you pushed the limits on the Facebook thing so you could get more membership. Yeah, David, that's what you did, you prick.
Oof. That's an insane thing to say. Let me see what else I got. Do I have anything else of interest for you guys? Oh, we haven't heard anything from Whitney, so let's hear from Whitney.
So I noticed everybody's having an issue with the prejudicism, and I feel like I'm having like
with
the
what?
most amount of.
What did she say? People are having an issue. Did anybody understand that? An issue with what? The presidency? Prejudicism? Let me listen once more. Hold on.
So I noticed everybody's having an issue with the prejudicism.
I think she says prejudiceism. Yeah, I think that is what it is.
And I feel like I'm having like the most amount of issue with it. Just because I really, really saw into like what like most people in the black community wanted from the white people and like wanted them to say. Because I do really, really care, obviously, when it's like, you know, a lot of my life I've been told like I'm not perfect. And
you and me
like,
both, Whitney.
You know, you want to figure out how to be perfect.
Well, I don't know that that's is that really anyone's goal? To be perfect? I don't know. Seems like an unrealistic goal.
That you can succeed in the world and not have people like, you know, just dumping their shit on you all the time. And like, I realized like with the Jewish people, there's like a line that you don't cross.
Uh-oh.
And what I noticed is that a lot of my comments are actually more anti-Semitic.
Yes, Whitney, I've noticed the same thing. We are against anti-Semitism, just in the interest of full disclosure, for everybody on, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We are against anti-Semitism, but I commend Whitney. A lot of your comments are very anti-Semitic, and I'm glad that you're recognizing that. I want to say thank you to Weslow, Dying in Chat, and the Teal Appeal for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. I also want to thank Sandra Ferguson for the website membership. Sandra just signed up at joinpacman.com using the coupon code WOW22. WOW22. All right, that is everything I have for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a new show, podcast, clips, all of it. And then Saturday, I hope you'll join me at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Pillow Trump rally in Florence, Arizona. I can only imagine it will be a disgusting display. A disgusting display of all of the worst of American society. We'll see everybody then. Thank you.